We're still unpacking the clown car, and it's going to take me forever to get through all of the many candidates on the DNC for 2020, but we're going to start by we will continue by looking at Beto. All right, ladies and gentlemen, this is Beto.
Beto O'Rourke.
Now, the photo I just showed you is from his DWI arrest in 1998. And that's the first thing I wanted to bring to everyone's attention because it's one of the first things that I found. Apparently, in 1998, when Beto Robert O'Rourke was 26 years old, he was speeding in a 75 mile per hour zone near New Mexico, hit a truck, drove across the median, and then sped away in a drive and run. And it was found out later that he had been drinking. Fortunately, no one was hurt in that accident, but just like yesterday's video, I do not have a very positive outlook at drunk driving. And even though it happened quite a few years ago, it's still disturbing, and it still says something about his personality. It kind of reminds me of George W. Bush, who was a prolific drinker. You know, they called him Gin and Tonic. That was his nickname in college. And he had a similar situation. He got in trouble for it, and 1 month later, 1 month after getting in trouble, he sobered up. Of course, people who get caught drunk driving, it's almost never the first time that they do it. And so I can imagine that he has had his few drinks and gotten behind the wheel before. But that's neither here nor there. Let's put it to rest. I guess it is from 20 years ago. But at the same time, it is kind of frustrating to consider a 75 mile zone, speeding in 75 mile per hour zone. That's kind of frightening. In Wisconsin, I've never seen a 75 mile per hour speed limit, but that must be something in the Southwest. Texas thing, I don't know. Anyway, apart from that, I've already shown you the mugshot and talked about that out of the Houston Chronicle. Just looking at who he is. Last night, since he didn't do a town hall, I watched his debate with Ted Cruz, and this is from recently when he lost against one of the most hated Republicans out there. I mean, Ted Cruz does not have a lot of public support. It's interesting how in spite of that, he's got some good policy ideas, and he's come through in many ways for the Republicans. Lion Ted, as Trump named him, that same moniker that Beto threw at him during the debates. But it was clear that Beto was going to lose. If I had watched that debate before the election, the Senate election, then I would have guessed that Beto had no chance. It's funny, he starts the debate by saying, "Oh, this is the most important election of our lifetimes." And senatorial election in Texas, I'm not sure that is. Maybe for him it was. But at the same time, you know, after losing to smarmy Lion Ted Cruz, he's now running for president. So I wonder if this is now, in turn, the most important election for Beto. And people make fun of his name. I think it's kind of a cool name, and it's actually, he's had it since he was a kid. I've seen him. There's a photo going around of him when he was a kid with the word Beto. I don't know, it was a way to keep him apart from his parents. It sounds a little bit more legit than Sean King. Sean King was known as, he was named Jeffrey, but they called him Sean. Sean with the AU sounds distinctly blacker than Jeff. I'm not sure if I've ever met or even heard of a black guy named Jeffrey. Beto also in the debate, he talked about living in El Paso and how important it was for him and his daughters to be protected in El Paso. But I can't imagine that he lives in a place that's just near the border, near anywhere crime-ridden, or that his children are out in the streets, out in the ghetto, anywhere near the border to the point where they could be attacked. I imagine he lives in a fenced-in community like many of these candidates, and we need to keep that in mind. When they talk about Border Patrol, they aren't really talking about the common American, unfortunately. But again, Ted Cruz just steamrolled him. It was clear to see how Beto wasn't going to win, and it was also good to see Ted Cruz in his element a little bit more. Also, like when you see Ted Cruz debating with Bernie, that happened a few months ago. Very interesting, and yet Ted was crushed by Trump, and so you have to consider that. You have to consider the long-term game. How many of these people are really going to survive against a Trump who's doing quite well, the economy is doing well, unemployment is down, people are working again, and there are criticisms about Trump, including the wall, but even Beto had to agree with Trump. And it's interesting how Trump has such a presence in every debate stage, how he got mentioned in every town hall, and he's truly living rent-free in people's heads. Poor Beto, speaking of how the most important election in his life, he lost, and now he's running for president. And again, I'm not sure he has much of a chance. I remember there was a rally in El Paso when Trump was talking there, and Beto and his supporters, and it looked really shabby. It was like this area with fences, I don't know. Of course it was staged, it's all staged, but from what I could gather, even in the audio, the official audio that was released, you could still hear Trump's people shouting. You could hear their noise over Beto's very tiny rally. And I'm not sure what the deal is with Beto. He's got these very cringy ads that seem to directly go with his sex appeal. And as you saw in his photo, he was a handsome younger man. He's still quite good looking. He kind of reminds me of Ron Goldman or Cato Kalin. I don't know, I've got the O.J. Simpson trial still strongly in my mind, but that's just the good-looking, rich 90s guy, is what he looked like. And in his announcement, the one where he's doing all this, flailing around, which he does it a lot, but it's sort of, so does Delaney, so does Warren. That's a pretty common mistake that politicians are making. But he does it even more with the emphasis of words, almost like a William Shatner kind of presentation. But you see in that opening ad, and his wife is just looking at him I wish I had a woman to look at me the way she's looking at him. Just totally obsessed with him, just enamored. And then in the ad, it's, he's taken, but I want to be with him, the girl says. It's these very mainstream liberal women talking about how she saw him on Ellen DeGeneres and she wants him to be president. He's like JFK with a $10 hairdo. Oh, JFK, come on, are you kidding? This is ego off the rails. And so part of the fun of watching these videos and learning about these candidates is just seeing how deluded they are. And you really have to have a certain degree of delusion, just as Trump did, just as Bush did, as Obama did. You really have to believe in the absolute best of yourself, and you have to be willing to put it out there. And Beto is just pure cringe, so much cringe. You've got a video of him with his band in college called The Sheeps, which reminds me of other punk bands that I've seen, and his singing is bad, the band is terrible. It looks like something that, we all go through that. We all go through our phases in college, and perhaps in my case, my phase right now, making videos like this. But to see that and say, okay, yeah, this is my campaign. This is the sort of person I am. I am presidential material. Just hilarious. Just completely backwards. And I'm surprised he hasn't dropped out yet. But we'll see that happening soon. It's going to come crashing down on him very soon. Certain other candidates, certainly John Delaney. Beto doesn't have intersectionality points. All he can do is just say that he's sticking up for minorities and gays and women and so on. And really, he doesn't fall into any of those categories. He's just another establishment Democrat, white male, fucking a white male who's going to try to be the DNC candidate. And even though he does have the sex appeal, he's not as touchy-feely as Joe Biden, and certainly not as familiar. In spite of having the fortunate nickname Beto, which is better than Buttigieg, let's not kid ourselves, having a gay president with butt in his name is kind of funny. I still don't think Beto has a chance, even if he goes on his skateboarding competition with Andrew Yang. So that's Beto. Over and out.